I don't know that we've hit on loneliness yet, but we've definitely hit on being able to remove the mask and show your true self, which I think is a huge part of the loneliness. You have to be able to take off the facade, and we're definitely seeing that.
Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, an Arcadia production. This is the show all about how to grow in business, lead with purpose, and live with intention. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Hello, friends. It's Sam. So much is going on in the Arcadia world right now. I feel like we are growing up as a business a little bit, which is cool and scary and really exciting. We just headed to Austin for our first road show, which was so fun to see so many of you in person. So thanks to everybody who came out for that. If you haven't heard, Arcadia Leadership Experience is coming up this summer, and it's just going to be so great. We're so excited. We have such an amazing group of people coming. We have new attendees. We have a lot of return attendees because they just love it so much. We are at a new venue this year called Hardscrabble Ranch. There's going to be 65 go-to-market leaders, glamping. We have amazing content coming this year. You'll be in the woods of Montana for 3 nights, 2 days. There'll be fly fishing, yoga, sound bath, peers who you can really talk through real things with, the realities of leadership, the realities of life, all the things. So anyways, if that sounds interesting, arcadialeadershipexperience.com for more details. It is filling up, and we are doing a price increase very soon. So don't wait. Today's guests are so fun and so special. I mentioned this on the show, but I was recently on their podcast, which is called Not All Business, and it's absolutely phenomenal. You need to go listen to it. But it was so fun for me because it was one of the only podcasts I've ever been on that I actively listened to. And I'm just here to tell you, you will be rolling on the floor laughing because they are so funny. But today we have Heather Cooper and Blakely Graham, who were competing CEOs. Heather was at Cloud Coach, Blakely was at TaskRay, and we learned in the episode today that they never even knew each other during those times, but have since become, in my opinion, some of the most dynamic co-hosts that I listen to on a weekly basis. So anyways, it's a super fun, honest, rare conversation between two CEOs, now business partners, and the realities of what leadership looks like. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. I am so pumped for this episode because I was able to join Blakely and Heather on their phenomenal podcast, Not All Biz, a while ago, Not All Business. And I told them all while I was on the show that it was the first podcast that I was on that I actually listened to. So that was very fun.
We had way too much fun. You probably wanted to see what got left in the episode.
Sam was going to give me the rundown last night because obviously we haven't met. Hello, nice to meet you. But she was telling me the story that you guys used to be rival CEOs. And I was like, hold up, what? And now they're running a company together. This is a story I've got to hear. So like, we'll love to hear, a quick recap of like how and where you guys were rival CEOs, but like also hear kind of about how that dynamic flipped and you were like, you know what? I need to be in business with that son of a bitch because, I can see how she goes to war with their competitors.
So we were competing in project management space on the Salesforce platform. So Salesforce ecosystem, competing
Real
ISVs.
cutthroat.
Yeah, very actually. And so, it wasn't as much like person to person. Like I didn't know Blakely Graham, but I knew TaskRay. And she didn't know Heather Cooper, but she knew Cloud Coach. And so she would do like some pretty nasty things like sneak around, pretend to be a customer to get the updated feature releases. We were very competitive. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we occasionally are in a deal against TaskRay. It was every week we were in a deal against TaskRay. So we were always keeping track of each other's companies. And then about 12 years into it, we both exited, got bought, and took a little time off to decide what's next. And in that, during my next gig is when a mutual friend said, you don't know Blakely? I've never actually met her. She lives 45 minutes away. How's that possible? You need to reach out.
Did you know that she lived that close? Like, had you done enough stalking? No, okay.
Honestly, I couldn't name. I'm not a name person. I couldn't name names. Who is the CEO? It was more like company to company, right? So
Okay, so when you guys were like in the thick of it, running these companies, you didn't know each other.
Right.
no,
Right.
No.
I couldn't have picked her out in a crowd. She couldn't have picked me out
Exactly.
in a crowd.
No.
It wasn't like
No.
that. It was company
which
to
is
company.
really kind of odd because there aren't a lot of female CEOs in the Salesforce ecosystem, and so we kind of band together in a group. And oddly enough, Heather and I have all the same female CEO connections inside of Salesforce, but yet I think we missed the opportunity to get to know each other because we were competitors. So I think we probably just naturally repelled from each other to some degree, is my sense of why we didn't know each other.
Honestly, I didn't even know if you were a woman or a man. Your name isn't. I mean,
very ambiguous.
I feel that, Blakely. I feel that.
Thank you, Sam.
Between Sam and Blakely, are these two bros going out getting beers? Are these?
That's what we are.
Yeah.
It's in
Anyway.
our benefit.
Yeah.
Male CEOs when we need to be.
That's right.
I think it wasn't meant to be. I think it's crazy enough that we didn't meet earlier that it might have messed up what we're doing now. I really do. I believe in timing that way. I do. So I did go and, at the behest of a good friend, send an email to you. I slid up on her DMs.
And I'm like, what? Do I have to go back into Salesforce world?
She was a
B,
bitch about
meet my
it.
competitor?
You were not very open to it.
I was done. I was done with corporate. I was done with Salesforce. I was just done with all that. So what was the benefit to me to go meet you? And it's odd, right? It felt funny. And I didn't know what we would say or talk about.
Yeah, it was weird. And all of the people that we told that we were going, they're like, "Why would you do that? What are you getting out of it? That's really strange." But we did it because we both deeply respected this mutual friend. So
That's exactly why.
that's
Yeah.
a big deal. It's a big deal what you guys do. You know, it's like we've built friendships with these other people. And so in the business world, black and white, would I have taken that meeting or asked for that meeting? No. But because of the friendship we built with Stephanie, that took it to a whole nother level. And we're like, well, if Stephanie thinks this should happen, then I'm going to trust Stephanie, regardless of how I think. And then here we are in business
Another
together.
female CEO in the Salesforce ecosystem, just for reference.
Yeah, who's
So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
So drove down to Boulder, went to the bathroom early to check my teeth because I was kind of nervous about it. I don't know. It was just.
Did this feel like a first date?
Yes,
first
kind
date
of.
action,
It
yeah.
did. She had already stalked me to see what I looked like, right? Did he?
Well, don't you do that? Don't you always
You
go
have to.
on to LinkedIn and see what they look like so you're
No.
not wandering in the coffee shop going, who is that? Is it her? It's just.
I do.
I get there early to check the LinkedIn picture, not my teeth. Like, all right, what's this person going to look like when they walk in?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that was not a stalking. That's normal human behavior. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Strategy.
Well, I think you should be flattered that I checked my teeth before. Mm-hmm. We hugged, which was really
Oh,
weird.
right off the bat.
Right off the
Yeah,
bat.
we went straight for it. First of all, we kind of look, no, we don't look like each other, but we look similar, right? We're both blondes. We're the same age. We have found out that we have similar kids, ages, boy, girl. We're in these parallel universes, almost doppelgangers. And it just felt like there was just an instant connection, right? So we're like, okay, this is not going to be the lunch that I thought it was going to be.
And you know what I just thought of the other day where I loved you so much is you ordered prime rib and fries or something. Or maybe that was our second day. But I was because you come off, you're fucking Boulder, you're CrossFit, all these really annoying things about you. And you're always 22 supplements a day. I can't, opposite. But then you're like, do I get the salad? And then I ordered a French dip and fries. And you were like, actually, that looks really good. And I was like, yes. Yes.
people.
She's not this vegan thing I thought you were. I had you in such a Boulder box.
Heck to the
And then I was like,
a lot of
okay,
meat.
okay,
Just,
we can
just
be.
check the CrossFit box, not the judgment box, huh?
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is a 3-hour lunch. And in that 3 hours, and I think this is solidifies the meet cute of how we got to Not All Business. But in that 3 hours, we literally talked about everything we went through the last 10 years. And the similarities were uncanny. And we were laughing so hard. And then we had started crying at some point and then laughing. And I just remember Heather sitting back and going, could you imagine if like you were a fly in this wall, and hearing like what we endured, the hills we climbed, the joys we experienced, like there was so much in those 3 hours that we're like, wow, like, can we share this? Like, can we invite other people into it? It's sort of kind of the genesis of the podcast, which, by the way, she asked me to do on the way home. Like, she literally got to her car and she texts me. She's like, and tells me all this like fly on the wall stuff. And it was so great to meet you. And like, we should have a podcast. And I'm like, no flipping way. Like, the last thing I want to do is be in the public eye on a podcast. And then we kind of like set it down for a hot second. And then was it like 1 week later? Maybe
So
a
we
few
didn't
days
set it down
later.
for that long. Yeah. Like literally a second.
She said hot seconds. So.
Yeah, we picked it up 10 seconds later.
You were sitting in the doctor's office about to get your annual female exam. I was like in the office about to get the like above the legs one, the chest one. And so we are both in the female offices getting our female exams. And I'm like, holy crap,
We should be podcasting.
this is
I mean,
meant to be.
obviously, yes.
Like, we
They're only once a
literally-
year, those exams, by the way. So the fact they were scheduled on the same day.
Parallel lives. So that's the whole story.
It came out of loneliness when we looked back. Obviously, we have a bunch of friends and colleagues and all of that. There's plenty of people around. But there was a loneliness as we led those companies and in those conversations, because if you're a good leader, you're not passing down the boardroom stress to your people. You're holding that, you're carrying that, you're deciding what to share and how. And so there was just a ton of loneliness there that we both experienced. And we're like, that sucked. Like, how can we, have conversations that are the 5 minutes after the meeting conversation where everyone's really talking straight about how they really feel to help other people in the same spot not feel so lonely.
Did you kind of understand that about each other during that lunch, about like the loneliness factor that happened for both of you?
Those were the more like tear moments. Yeah.
CEO, first of all, is the loneliest job in the whole world. I mean, it is absolutely the loneliest job. And to think that we could have honestly been friends through it would have been a tremendous gift, even if as competitors. And by the way, competitors are sometimes your best friends, right? Because you pass leads you don't want, they pass you leads. Like there was no reason to not like each other, but you are, I think, conditioned to not like each other. It was an absolute recognition of that loneliness and trying to fill that gap for some other people.
While you were in those roles, could you have called that loneliness in the moment, or was that a hindsight?
That's actually a whole nother story for another day, but I was very lonely and I called it loneliness and tried to seek out with different, like there's CEO groups out there, but it's just not the same as someone who's really in the business, right? Like, and Heather was in the exact same business, and there was just a exchange of similarities being, I don't know what exactly it is, but I didn't realize like that's who I was looking for, I guess I would say.
The loneliness discovery for me was hindsight. When I was living it, I was just so focused on being strong and having everyone's back and just being that it was a lot of focus on just be better, be stronger, you got this. But it wasn't like a sadness. It was more of a stress and like a burden. And then I realized through talking to Blakely, I was just really lonely. There wasn't anybody to talk to about these things. So for me, it was more hindsight, realizing the loneliness.
You find yourself in conversations with CEOs now, leaders of companies, talking about this loneliness?
I don't know that we've hit on loneliness yet, but we've definitely hit on the being able to remove the mask and show your true self, which I think is a huge part of the loneliness. You have to be able to take off the facade, and we're definitely seeing that. There's a very high bar on, especially female CEOs in our experience, to present a face and have it all together and not show weakness. And we've talked about what it's like to go leave the meeting, cry in the bathroom, touch your makeup up, and then go back in for the second round of negotiation or whatever that looks like. And that's happening all the time, all over the place.
Isn't it so interesting? I mean, like, that's one of the reasons that we built Arcadia, is because leadership is so lonely, and yet nobody talks about that. And that's why I feel so drawn to you both, because you literally talk about these taboo topics on your show too. And yeah, as a leader, and female, male, I think both of those hold their own nuances for sure. But you still feel like you can't say, I don't know, I need help. This feels scary and hard, because you do have to show up with, quote unquote, you do have to show up with all the answers.
And that's what's so unique about Arcadia is you guys are kind of stripping the facade away in your retreat and bringing a little of the humanity into it. And that is, I did not find that to be true in any of the kind of the classic CEO support groups I was in, or leaderships, or even having certain mentors, even like at Salesforce. Like if I had a mentor at Salesforce, but I still had to kind of perform up to that mentor. And so it is a gift to be able to find support where you can strip that away. And that is truly the only way to kind of combat that, I think.
Thinking back on those groups and those times, like, what do you wish you would have had more of?
Confidence, 100%, knowing myself.
Do you feel like you found that now?
Yes, you have. You have come so far in 1 year. You 100% have. I've seen you grow like crazy. Even just like the little jitters before recording, or your prep. Like you used to over prep. Now you barely even prep.
I think I'm learning that confidence is more about knowing yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I think I've gotten a little bit better at that over the years.
And also, I think this podcast and working with you has been great for us letting our egos go, letting go of what people think, finding humor in other people's opinions and comments, and realizing that comments way more about them than it is about us. But those types of things are huge, especially with the idea of imposter syndrome. I mean, really, that's just coming down to how you think other people are perceiving you, not like what you're truly capable of, right? So it's been great to be able to shed that. I personally have, it's like I'm getting a thicker skin, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I also think imposter syndrome is often also the environment you're in too, right? Like I don't feel imposter syndrome like when I'm around you, Heather, right? I think there are people, those people though, that you walk in and meet and you immediately feel like I could tell them anything. I feel so safe around them. And they may be like 5 times more experienced and accomplished than you, but they're so disarming. And so I don't really feel like I have imposter syndrome when I feel disarmed. So sometimes I think it's in our head. Well, it's all in our head, but it's our perception of ourselves, but also the environment. And so you got to kind of combat that a couple different ways. And Heather is very disarming. She's very funny. So humor has really, I think, helped a lot in all of this.
Okay, well, for what it's worth, Blakely, you're also hilarious. So.
Agreed.
That's right.
Agreed.
Okay, I was going to ask this later, but what you just said, Blakely, kind of prompted this. Your comment about people being disarming and creating kind of that space. I personally think every great leader I've worked for does that. And so I'd be curious for both of you, as you've been leaders, you are still leaders in a lot of areas of your life. Do you have like leadership principles that you try to follow, or how did you want to be known as a leader, and how do you stay true to that? And I want each of you to answer. So Heather first.
My approach has always been understand the person across from me first, right? Instead of trying to fit them into the box of what the company needs or what I need out of them, just reversing that, because it's not ever going to work if that person can't fit that mold. And so just understanding who they are, what do they think their role is in achieving these goals for the company? How do they see it? How do they understand? How do they play their part? And is that something they're excited about, willing, engaged to do? And so that's how I would start leading every team. And then that part of that is getting to know them as a person. And that has always worked. And I've moved people around departments based on those learnings over time, and not just instead of firing them because they weren't able to do customer success as well as I thought, I realized actually they're more leaning on the technical side. What if we tried them over in professional services first before we would just let them go? But trying to understand the human behind the role.
I feel like a lot of people could say, I want to understand the person on the other side of the table, but then the actual execution of that it's very different person to person.
So coffee or lunches. Anytime I entered an organization, I did a one-on-one out of the office something with each person, no matter
Okay.
how high or low. And sometimes it took all year. I mean, obviously couldn't do it every day, but it would take several months. But by the end of the year, I would have had that time with everybody out of the office.
Would you use humor in sort of your leadership as CEO, or did you kind of like table that, or would you that kind of come into those off-site meetings you have had? Like, how did humor tie into your leadership in that lesson?
Obviously have not heard Heather's episode where she says she had mandatory fun days. She made
love
people
it.
drink margaritas on Cinco de Mayo. So
Okay.
did she use her humor? Answer that.
Every day. I did.
I listened
every
to one
day.
episode. You had this beautiful woman on there named Sam.
Yes.
And that's the episode.
She was the
I'm
best.
not a good podcast listener. I'm a good podcaster, but not listener.
Yeah. I try to bring humor in every meeting in one way or another, just to like get through. Humor is so important to disarm people and get them re-engaged and talking and laughing and taking a deep breath. I try to use it constantly.
So our vision at TaskRay was we build beautiful experiences for work because work deserves beautiful experiences. The reason for being for that statement was we started in like 2010 or something. And consumer apps were so hot, right? Like you were on your phone and you had these beautiful apps and these beautiful experiences. And then you go over to the enterprise and you're like on AS400 machines and old CRMs and it sucked. And you're like going to work sucked. And so that was from like a product side. And then from a people perspective, I've always felt very strongly that work should not be your life, that it should empower like a beautiful life. And so we also felt very strongly about investing in people. And so with this whole notion, like work should be beautiful, it should be beautiful in our product, it should be beautiful for our employees, it should be beautiful for our customers. It was always about investing in people and programs. We put a lot of money into operational ways to invest in our people. So they got a lot of time off. We paid them to go on vacation. We paid them $1,000 for every year that they like worked and served us. We paid them in terms of big education packages. So that was like the monetary operational side, but we also invested in coaches. As you rose in leadership, you got a coach at certain, different levels, so to speak. And everyone, the whole company got a coach too, but it was more like group coaching. I firmly believe if you invest in your people and your product in that way, like your culture will show that. And it's your brand. Like people are your brand. And that floats all the way up from your products to your customers to your sales. And it comes all the way back down and enables you to invest even more in your people. So it was just kind of a big circle for me. And that's been my leadership principle. And it was a joy to do that and get really positive feedback from, our team.
That's so in line with the way we think about work and life and all the things. And we get a lot of pushback.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you have investors, no one's going to let you do that.
Totally. So that was
Yeah.
my question. Like, do you feel, yes, you got positive feedback from your employees and whatnot, but do you feel that you saw tangible dividends from investing in your people and culture that way and that like actually made the business grow?
100%. I mean, I was involved in the business for 12 years and we never took a dollar and we grew slow at first, but we were profitable from the very beginning and we dumped every bit of profit back into the company. And at some point that just started to snowball and then we were able to exit and I had a great exit, but we were also able to provide meaningful exits for employees. So I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we were bootstrapped and we did not take investors and we had control. But you have to know that Eric and my partner and I came from VC-backed companies and we lived the grind and the death marches and it's just not worth it. Why is that ever worth it? And so I guess maybe my real passion is in sustainable, profitable growth. You can do that with investors. I am watching a company do that kind of up close. It's possible. I think it's harder, but it is possible. But we should all be focused on sustainable, profitable growth, not like, here's $20 million, go as fast as you can and fail fast.
But to do that and to do that bootstrapped, which we did the same thing, you really have to have the buy-in of your staff. They have to be really engaged. Your customer success team needs to understand what NRR means. They have to buy into the metric. They have to go celebrate the metric. I mean, when they would hit over 100%, then they'd all get a steak dinner out at this little place. We tricked them and made them think it was like a super fancy place, but it was not.
They were not beautiful steaks.
But they loved it. I mean, it was the kind of
Captain
place
D's.
where it had like corn checks on the salad. Like it was like,
I'm sorry, what? Yeah.
was this a red
taking the-
lobster?
Did you take it to Long John Silver's? Where do we go here?
and like the really old big white plates and the plastic cups. But we made them get all dressed up. It was hilarious. But they loved it. And then that became
Humor.
That became a
Yes.
staple though, where it's like, okay, we're all going out to, I forget the name of it. They all understood their metric, and then it was like on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. And so they're working toward a goal, and then there's a reward, and then another goal, and there's a reward. And what we did was, it wasn't like, hey, you get an extra day off to go spend with your family, because there was plenty of that. We had flexible PTO. It was, how are we celebrating as a team? So it was a trip to Mexico, or it was a two nights in Vegas, but we would go as a team, including the spouses as often as we could and as budget would allow. But you know what was built out of that? People helping each other move on a weekend, being the best man in someone's wedding. Like all of these moments where it was kind of this forced social time turned into deep friendships. I just went to a funeral last week, and there was 10 people there from the company, right? And we've been not working together for 5 years, but they still showed up. They still kept in touch. So it's getting to the core of, how are you allowing people the space to connect as humans, build those relationships. And then they also care about work, and then they also care about each other.
What I'm hearing from both of you, and what I can really appreciate, and what I try to incorporate in my own leadership, is like, you made your team feel like a valued part of the company. Like they felt like they had value there. Like you brought them into the business, so like everything they did, had a point and a purpose, and you made them feel like a valued part. And I feel like over the last, 5 or 6 years, like we've somehow lost that. We've somehow lost the ability to have fun, like enjoy the work that we're doing in the space, right? We're not saving lives, but we've also lost the ability to make our teams feel valued in what we're doing. We're seeing a lot of that now because like the VC world has moved in such a high level, and revenue is the main expectation, no longer the people, which revenue is always main expectation, but you always place value in the people. What's your valuation? Right, we're looking at that. How are we meeting those expectations of the investors and stuff that kind of takes away the piece of it that makes us feel like we're a valued part of the company. We don't get to see behind the scenes anymore, and I think that's true for like startups even today, and even obviously the scale ups. But like for me, when I get in some of these companies, I look at like, where the hell did the culture go? And when I worked for Drift for a couple of years, it was like they were the quintessential culture queen for a while. How was that for alliteration? They lost like their heart and soul because it was all about like diehard path to get to 100 million, and Vista came in, and like we just lost everything that made it special.
Yeah, they overlook it. They think people are replaceable, and people come and go, and you can't, count on it. There's no loyalty anymore, and so they kind of use that as an excuse to just say, well, people are expendable, so we're not going to spend dollars on trying to keep them here when they're going to leave anyway. Especially post-COVID, remote culture. Everybody's kind of doing 3 jobs at once. They stopped investing in it, I think, in the culture.
I don't know if they ever did. And I'm not even sure if it's possible when you are tasked with such unreasonable, like top line numbers. You can scale all of that in a more organic way, even like with money, if you're spreading it more balanced. We just live in such an outsized place where we're rewarding investors or leaderships with packages. Like we're in such a like socioeconomic divide right now that if you're not feeding that middle, and in a company, that middle looks like culture and all the other pieces of the infrastructure other than sales and CS, right? And so,
well, as soon as you lose your bootstrapping makes sense to people. It's a very easy P&L, right? And it's like, let's make more than we spend. And then once you get purchased and you get private equity, you get VC, the numbers get really fuzzy. And then you're in these board meetings and it's like, wait a minute, we had this, but then they do their financial stuff on the back end in gymnastics and we're going to capitalize this over the next 5 years and then we're going to do this. And so that they can then report up and it looks better than it is. But then you have to go back to your team. It just doesn't make sense. They're like, but I thought we were okay. It's like, well, no, those are those numbers for the banks and the reporting loans. These are the actual numbers and we're failing. And it's like, well, where are we? You lose your North Star so quickly and it feels like it's always unattainable.
Well, you're not watering like all the gardens, right? Like you're not watering your education department, your accounting department. You kind of forget, you take your eye off of a lot of your infrastructure. And I think that's a real danger. I mean, there's a reason why I say sustainably profitable, like it's sustainable. It's just not sustainable.
Well, I think what we lost, Blakely, is we lost the ability to not heap tons and tons of work on people. So when the attrition leaves and then they're not backfilling, then it's like, oh, okay, well, Laura, I'm sorry. Instead of doing these 5 reports, you also have to do Amy's reports because she's no longer with us and we've decided we're not going to backfill her. So you just keep heaping all of this pressure on existing stuff without putting any deposits, to your point.
Which is now doubling at an alarming rate thanks to AI. So same thing's happening, but now like the expectations are to do even more. And no, we're not going to get you any help. It's like, go figure out how to use AI. And now like, and what we're seeing is like all these leaders are becoming more and more burnt out as a result because like there's no help coming.
If you don't want to do it, we'll replace you because there's a guy down the road that does because he just lost his job last week.
The job market is crazy.
Yeah, so you feel like you
and if
have
you're
to.
lonely, just go talk to Claude.
I know. That's what I just have to say. Like, yeah. So now like our work environment, mandatory fun is a relationship with Claude. Like, come on.
The amount of people that are actually turning to Claude and GPT for coaching. I was listening to a podcast I was running the other morning, which is when I listen to my podcast. And they were talking about that, like the amount of people that are actually turning to that for coaching and counseling. I'm like, wow, that is a scary, sad place to be.
It's a sad place to be because AI does not have a lived experience.
That said, I did hear my husband the other day said something to his AI and it said, but would Heather be okay with that? I was like, okay, back it up. What have you been telling this thing? Why does it know my name? Why does it think I'd be okay with it? Also, what are you doing? And am I okay with it?
Okay. I was talking to Claude about some symptoms in my dog. And it was like, well, who are we talking about? Eldon or Lula? I'm like, those are my kids. It's not my dogs.
Okay, switching gears a little bit. One of the my favorite things that you guys do on your show is the sticky situations. So for people that have not yet listened, go listen to the show. But basically the sticky situations are listeners write in with a sticky situation in their world and you respond. You either talk about similar shared experience or you give advice or whatnot. We've kind of touched on this, but more specifically, I'm curious, were there any sticky situations in your lives as CEOs that made you want to build this show?
Oh, that's interesting. Would you say it was a must-have? Like, did we know we were doing sticky situations from the very beginning, Heather?
Yes, we did because we said we wanted to be sex ed for leadership.
What is sex ed for leadership? You can't just like blow over that without like giving me some more detail here.
Well, you know, when you were in like sex ed, like all the 5th graders were like, I wanted to ask a question about like their parts or something. And you can't ask that in front of the other 5th graders. So the whole point is to provide a space where like, yeah, like ask us the questions you're too afraid to ask. And as an example, I think going back to Sam's like original question, I've said this one on the show many a times, but when it got to the point where I needed to talk to investors because we were considering taking on money and then ultimately we were considering selling and I had no idea how to do that. I did not go to an Ivy school. I did not go to a business school. I went to a state school that didn't have a network. I never learned to speak Patagonia vest bro code. Like I just didn't know. And so I would go on these investor calls and I think they like had me pegged and they're 22-year-old analysts, like before you even like get to the next level. And they're like throwing all these words out at me. And the one word that got thrown out at me was dry powder, or 2 words, I guess. And I just sat there and like, what is dry powder? Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about skiing? Are we talking about cocaine? Like, I just had no idea what they meant. And I didn't know who to ask because I didn't want everyone like, oh, what are we doing? Are we selling? Are we raising money? And I just didn't know. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what the term meant. And so those are some of those sticky situations where you're too afraid to ask, and I didn't know who to ask. And those are the kind of questions I hope we get more of.
So what is dry powder?
Available funds. It's calling out the bullshit, calling out the, hey, so this is what I experienced. One of them was about a dream board. Like, my manager's asking us to do these dream boards. It feels like it's really crossing a personal boundary. Kind of sanity checking on, is this what I need to expect now that I'm part of corporate world? I have to bare my soul in front of these strangers, helping people navigate these difficult situations so that they can be more empowered at work and go into it feeling like, I know how to handle this. Like, I got some good advice over here. They talked about her religion and said, those are really nasty people. How could you believe in a God that blah, blah, blah? And it's like, what's your response to that? Especially younger people coming up and without having the confidence and having to be deferring to their CEOs and giving them, but it's like, no, this is where you draw the line in the sand and we're going to help you do it.
But to be clear, I would not say I'm a coach or an advice giver or like even know the answers. But I think what we can do is provide our lived experiences and some perspectives and some things to think about. And it's really more about saying, hey, sticky situation listener that, has a problem with tuna fish eating in our office kitchen. Like, you're not alone there.
Yeah.
Like,
This is a serious business.
it's a real situation. And so here's some ideas.
But it gets the conversation going too. It's like, we might be wrong. You might disagree with us, but hey, we're having this fun conversation about it, whether it's in the comments on the show or a follow-up question. It gets the conversation going.
By the way, like that big boob sticky situation, I had someone text me personally that said, I have never felt so seen as listening to that episode. And you're like, what? Like you don't even think it's like a big deal, but it's a big deal,
Are there other like major like recurring themes or recurring questions that come up that you feel like nobody's answering honestly out there?
I think the female male thing is tough still, because I think one thing that we kind of assumed that this would be a female show or attract mostly female listeners because that's who Blakely and I are. And we just, that's who we're talking. But 33% of our listeners are actually men. And that was really interesting to learn, because we are going to keep being ourselves. There are so many female CEO podcasts out there. I mean, there's just so many. We just want to have straight up conversations. So we had one, it was the husband's episode. And I don't think that part ever aired because we had to cut it down. But there was a part where my husband was saying he has a hard time in interviewing women now and understanding which questions to ask. And he doesn't want to be influenced. He's so hyper aware of what to say and what not to say that he thinks it doesn't give them a fair shake because he's worried. Where if it's just a guy, he's just focused on this. So he's like, because he has this extra layer of I need to be careful of how I position the questions, it actually detracts from the interview, which hurts them in the end. So it's just a very interesting conversation that I think people are afraid to ask, because the right answer should be you treat everyone exactly the same. And you're a bad person if you're having a different thought. But also we're human. And how is that? So those types of things I think are very, very sticky that we still are kind of dancing around, Blakely. I want to get more out of our guests on this, but it's vulnerable because they don't want to get canceled.
That's why we ended up doing some of these sticky situation anonymous type shows. You can't really ask someone right in the height of their career to come and confess. I want them to confess. That would make for a great show.
But it's safer to do around an Arcadia campfire, probably. Yes. It's confidential and it's a retreat.
There are
just
no
out
mics.
There. Right.
Exactly.
There are no mics. There's no recordings. And
okay, we'll be the stepping stone for an Arcadia campfire.
You guys just need to create a Claude algorithm to delete all the trolls from Blakely's vision.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Heather brings them up on the show and she'll be, look at this guy said. I'm like,
no, you're fine. You're fine. We're going to thicken up that skin.
Okay, so speaking of, this is kind of a good transition because you talked about this, seeing each other grow over the last year, getting thicker skin, all the things. As my co-host is also on this show, that is a relationship different than any other, and the learning curve is high. And we've been doing this for, how long has it been, Jay? 3 years? More than that?
Yeah, right about 3 years.
I feel like it's gotten a lot easier. Like we know when he's going to have a follow-up question or when I am giving him the eyes or, like whatever it is. How has that been learning each other throughout this journey?
On the show, Clay will always tell our guests that we interrupt each other, we talk over each other, we have different points of view, and that is our culture. And it has been really hard for some speakers, especially. We just did a communication series, and so we had 2 amazing experts that teach you how to listen. And we're like, we interrupt each other on the show. We don't get ready for it.
Yeah, right.
And so at some level, like, it's part of what makes us us. But in terms of what I see in our relationship and running a business like the 2 of you are also, you're not just co-hosts, you're running like a bigger business. It's interesting because I think I had a lot of founder conflict in my last company and ended very well, but there was a lot of conflict. And it got to the point where we could not build or pick out like IKEA furniture without a consensus. And we're, running a $10 million company, we can't pick out IKEA furniture. Like, it's ridiculous. And so I see Heather and I, we're already taking roles, which is great because she really owns, the speaker process. I really own, some of the marketing and operational stuff. But at some point, that's not going to work. If this thing grows up, like, you need a person calling the shots. And I'm just calling it right now, Heather.
It's you.
I'm going to nominate you for CEO.
It's you.
This is being recorded, so if that's ever up for debate, we can just come back to this episode.
No, I think it's a great question. And I think for anybody in the position of starting a company and you've found your people, but you haven't quite figured out, because in the beginning, everybody's just doing everything. And then you do have to start defining. So early on, we kind of met a lot and we're like, okay, so you want to talk to the speaker? I'll talk to the speaker. Then we'll make a decision. And we did a lot of that together, but I'm still working full time. Blakely still has a full schedule with her kids and volunteering and all the other million things that you do, Blakely. So it really had to be very carefully distributed. I think we fell into that within the first couple of months. We're like, okay, because what started to happen is Blakely had a little bit more time on her hands, and so she just started to take and take and take, and then I was like, oh, she's gonna burn out. We have to like call the meeting, and I was just like, okay, you are doing way too much. Like, what can I take? So we kind of had this natural division. We're starting to get a little help, a couple interns, which is fun on the kind of the social media side and the developing partnership side, because we're always looking for people to sponsor episodes. We greatly appreciate that. Kind of launching that paid Substack subscriber thing has been fun. And then Clay, obviously the producer, takes a lot.
But he is a giver.
He's wonderful. He's officially part of the show big time.
He is.
We'd be lost without him. But the whole point is flexibility is so important. And regular checking in and self-reflection is so important. And like, what am I enjoying? What am I good at? I really love meeting with the speakers ahead of time. I really love prepping them. I love thinking about the direction that show could go. Blakely likes it, but she doesn't. It's not a need to. She loves spreadsheets. She loves figuring out the budget. She loves filling out the runway. So I write like the operational side, the newsletters. Guys, listen to Blakely. They're so good. Your newsletters are so funny and so good. We are leaning into what we enjoy.
Which is why we had to hire an intern for sponsorships.
Yeah. Blakely won't ask for money.
Brilliant.
She won't.
I can't ask for money.
She'll give you money,
bad.
though. If you need any money, you can ask Blakely, Blakely Graham at notallbusiness.com. Just submit your
You
request.
just need to start emailing people. What is it? Dry powder. Where's all the dry powder?
Well, part of it is like, could we fund this ourselves? Yes, we could, but we both love business and we love growing things, so it's not really fun.
Okay, let's bring this thing home. We have a few more questions, but if you could leave listeners with one thing to create a culture where these topics can be more easily discussed at work, what would you tell them?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, and I don't know that I have advice, but I will say if your listeners haven't listened to one of our more recent episodes with Ginger Graham, I highly recommend you go listen to it. She is the most accomplished leader we have interviewed to date. An incredible woman. She believed in herself, I guess, and she followed her values. Like, those were the things. And I remember thinking, was this nature or nurture? And I came out going, it doesn't really matter. Like, she talks a lot about her childhood upbringing and this incredible nurture, I guess. And she's just charismatic. And I'm like, well, can I ever be her? how do you create a culture like she has created and been so successful? And I didn't ever quite believe in myself, but I definitely followed my values. So that was able to compensate. And I'm coming back to say that to be a good leader, I do think you need to at least know yourself. And I think with any of the world's great problems, sexism, racism, like any of these issues at hand, and I would throw like being a great leader up there, you have to know yourself and heal yourself before you believe in yourself. And so I guess a culture of investing in yourself would be what I would want to start to see in these companies. It can be through therapy, it can be through coaching, however you want to take it on, but we should not be afraid of leaning into ourselves to be better for others.
And then I would say, just to balance that out and like teeter-totter that, would be to know your team. Like really know your team, who's on your team, who's in your circle, who's bought in. I'm not saying, especially with people, 300-person companies, you might not know every single person, but who are the 20 people in your radius? And by knowing them, who's their spouse? Who are their kids? Like who's on their team? If you really want them to stay invested, then you have to understand who they're going home to, what's the message they're getting, what are their concerns, because that's always going to be the other voice that they're getting, you know, that's either going to encourage them to say, yes, this company's good for you.
Do you remember our guest Molly Keaveney talking about that very thing? She would celebrate a person's birthday. She would celebrate their kids going to college. She would know
Send them
who's
like a
having
sweatshirt.
surgeries.
Congrats on your kid getting into Michigan State. Here's a sweatshirt for them.
Yes. So I was just about to tell that story. My son is graduating. She's like, could you let me know what school they're going to? And she doesn't just give, $50 or $100 to these grad kids. She gives them a hoodie from their future school and the money. But it's like that, I think, is exactly what you're saying. Like, let them feel seen and get to know who they are. And they're all unique, right?
We'll leave you with one final question here. At least I think maybe one final question. But what's something you're extraordinarily proud of right now?
I am proud that I am in relationship. I don't know how to say what we do, partnership. This is a big deal. I sat in a burnout couch for 3 years thinking I would never do something like this. And it feels good to be curious again. I'm so energized being behind this mic, even if I suck at it half the time. I don't care as much anymore because it is feeding my soul, and I can look back and be proud of what we built in our careers, like warts and all.
We're not going to give up. I'm glad we keep pushing this forward, and we're fighting for something that's outside of ourselves. So this isn't about us. This is about everybody else. This is about the leaders coming after us, and we're sharing that. And I'm so proud and thankful to have been in a place to have just a little bit of success, to have some credibility that I know what I'm talking about and experience to lean on. But I have bigger hopes for everybody that comes behind us, and I'm proud that we're creating this space.
I love it. I love that you guys are focused on investing in leaders and making it a better space. We're all better because of you.
Okay, well, this was the best. I knew it was going to be, but it was just really lovely. So if you haven't listened to Heather and Blakely, Not All Business, go do that now. All the places you find podcasts, right?
Yep. All the places. And if you want to see us go really nuts, go to our Substack at Not All Business. Because we get a little...
We go crazy.
Nice.
We go a little wackadoodle on there.
Well, friends, thank you so much. Go listen to Not All Business. I hope you learned something today. But just be a good human. Get to know the people around you. And you are capable of more than you think you are. So go be great. We will see you next time.
See y'all.